Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're back with my May wrap up. I read 12 books this month, which is the most books I've read this year so far. But not the most books I've read in a month in general. Well, technically it is. 12 is the most I've managed to do. I tried to squeeze in a 13th and I just can't do it. I can't bring myself to read at this current moment in time. So, yeah, 12 books this month. Let's go through what I read and what I thought. Okay, so first book I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This book took me like 4 days to read, but I did also read 4 books in the middle of reading this because I started this book and then did a 24-hour reading challenge right at the beginning of the month during the first May bank holiday. So yeah, I'll talk about this one just because I started it first. This one I rated 3 stars. This is like a cozy fantasy with a very side plot of romance. The side romance plot is not a full plot, if that makes sense. I thought it was very cozy feeling, it was very whimsical, and I quite liked the world we were in, but I just didn't really mesh well with the writing, and I did not even slightly believe in the romance between Emily and Wendell, I think his name is. Yeah, Wendell. That's not a sexy name. I'm sorry. If you call the love interest Wendell, I'm not interested. Yeah, I just felt it was not even slightly believable, the romance. So, yeah, I don't know. And I didn't get on with the writing. And then I listened to part of it on audiobook during my 24-hour reading challenge. And the audiobook has changed. I'm really confused because it was only one person, and then I was talking to someone about it yesterday, put it on, and now there's a man doing Wendell's parts, and there wasn't. There definitely wasn't. It was definitely a woman, the same woman, because her voice is still the same. I don't know if they've gone on afterwards in the last few weeks and added his voice in. I'm really confused. But when the voice actress was doing his parts in an Irish accent, it was fine. But when she was doing Emily's parts, it sounded like AI was reading it, to be honest. It just sounded very robotic, and the cadence of how English people speak, completely wrong. Even English people back in the 18 or 1900s, whenever this is, I don't know, just wrong. So yeah, didn't like the audiobook at all. Do not recommend that. But I'm very confused. So if anyone's listened to it before sort of now, please let me know if I'm crazy. Rate this 3 stars. There's no spice. It's not that kind of book, to be honest. Yeah. I might read the next one. I haven't decided yet, to be honest. And then I did my 24-hour reading challenge, and I started off with The Sinner's Duet by Sophie Lark. So There Are No Saints is the first one. I rated this one a 4 stars. I gave it like a 4 chili pepper rating because for it being less than 300 pages, I wouldn't say it's mostly spice. However, the spice is not vanilla in the slightest. It's rather out there. So that's why I rated it a 4 chili peppers. This was so fun. I literally read this in I think 4 hours or just under 4 hours. I was hooked on this book. It was so good. Straight away, I was gripped from the story. The writing was so easy to just be in and get stuck there, and I couldn't put this down. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. And then we went on to There Is No Devil, which I rated a 4.25 and still a 4 on the chili pepper spice rating. I liked this book ever so slightly more because in this one, the couple is more of a couple and they're kind of coming into their own a bit. Mara's kind of getting a bit more, don't think confidence is the right word, but yeah. I will say I did not read the back of these before going into them. I just knew I liked the Brutal Birthright series, so I picked these up when I saw especially how dinky they are. I did not look into these in the slightest. These are quite significantly darker than the Brutal Birthright series. I would definitely check trigger warnings, and yeah, I don't really have many triggers personally, especially not in fiction, but I would just check, be on the safe side. Then the next day I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This one I rated a 4.5 stars. It didn't quite give me the 5-star feeling that the Chestnut Springs Chestnut Springs series gave me. But this was so good. I was thinking about Ford all day. He is so good. I loved him. This one I've rated 3 chili peppers. Fairly on par with the Chestnut Springs series probably. This one is single dad trope and obviously small town trope. And I loved the kid in this because she's like a preteen. So the kid's name's Cora. I loved her. I don't always like kids in books, but I thought she was written really well, so really enjoyed that. Also, the little email moments you get between Ford and Rosie were really cute. I really loved that part of their relationship. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. Okay, the last book I read in my 24-hour reading challenge was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved the Demon. This book is completely unhinged, completely unserious, but very fun. It's also less than 300 pages. I've rated it 3 stars. I give it like a 3.5 chili pepper rating because the spice is later on, but once the spice is there, it's spicy. Yeah, this is the perfect palate cleanser. I need something that's going to just be mad, keep me interested, and again, it's just unhinged. So it wasn't like a literary masterpiece, but it was very fun. If you watched my May TBR jar video, you may have noticed I have yet to have read any of the books that I picked. I did get round to one finally. I read You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, and I rated this one 3 stars, and I gave it a 2 chili peppers because it isn't quite, it's not detailed like a smutty book, if that makes sense, but there is sexual themes, there's there is written depictions of sex, but I wouldn't say it's like spicy, if that makes sense. This book is probably one of the wildest books I've ever read because of it's not necessarily a plot twist, but it is, and it's just at first you're kind of thinking, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? And then afterwards you're kind of you can't help who you develop feelings for, but you're still kind of this is wrong. I will say that, yeah, the story is messy, the plot is messy, the characters are very real and flawed and messy. So I enjoyed the characters because they felt very fleshed out, they felt very real, they had real person problems, real person flaws. I didn't quite get on with the writing, it just didn't mesh with me. It took me ages to feel like I was actually hooked by the story. I was reading this very slowly. I think it took me nearly a week to read. In fact, it did. It took me 7 days. Yeah, I just don't think I connected with the writing very well. But I did enjoy the ending. I thought it was very sweet. The love story in this, I felt they were real soulmates. There is definitely the physical attraction was very insta-lusty on her end because you're only in Faye's point of view. But you could definitely tell there was a much deeper connection that happened very quickly. That being said, if everything was very quick in the way it happened. So, yeah. I did think it was a good book. I did enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I loved it. It is a beautiful cover though. I mean, just look at that. Next on audiobook, I listened to Butcher and Blackbird. I think I read the first 5 chapters on Kindle, but I remembered Heather, the YouTube person, she recommended the audiobook because Rowan's Irish accent, it really pops off in the audiobook, and I would thoroughly recommend listening to the audiobook of Butcher and Blackbird. It was so good. I rated the book 4.25 stars and it's got a 3 chili pepper rating. The spice, again, doesn't happen until much later on in the book, but it's very good spice. I will absolutely say that now. Yeah, it's a dark rom-com, and I just didn't think that was a genre that would really exist, but my god, it was so good. It was so fun. It was very the banter was good, the storyline was a little bit unhinged and wild, but you were just having a good time, you know? I'd feel like I didn't take in the writing. I never know if the writing's good on an audiobook because to me, listening to it and reading it is completely different things. And I can't take in the writing when I listen to it. So I don't know how I feel necessarily about the writing, purely because I feel like I can't remember it. If I read it, it makes more sense in my brain than if I'm listening to it. Okay, and then I read One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This took me like a week to read. I don't know why. There were some days I didn't read it. Some days I read like somewhere between 50 and 100 pages. It took me so long. So I kind of don't know how I feel about the book, but I did rate it a 4 stars. It's got no spice. Like sexual things are like kind of, well, not even sexual things. Intimacy is mentioned. It's not like certain sexual acts are mentioned, because they're not, but it's like intimacy is described, if that makes sense. I don't know how to like, I would say it's not spicy in the slightest, but there are like mentions of sex, if that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, I rated it 4 stars. This book was a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I feel like it definitely stuck to that feeling of Romeo and Juliet. At first I was not sure which couple was going to be the Romeo and Juliet, and then I thought maybe neither couple is going to be the Romeo and Juliet, and then I just didn't know. I was constantly questioning everything. There was a lot going on, there was a lot of plot twists. I feel like I can't remember everything though, because like I say, it took me so long to read, but I definitely got like a 4-star feeling from the book. Yeah, it definitely felt like a Shakespearean tragedy while I was reading this. I basically read 3 books from my TBR in a row, because the One for My Enemy was from my TBR video as well. The next one is What You're Looking For is in the library. This one I read sort of at the same time as reading One for My Enemy. I rated this one 5 stars. There's no spice, obviously. It's not a romance. So this one, I loved this book. There is not a single thing I would change about this book aside from I'd add like more to it. Like I want more. There are 5 chapters in this book. Each chapter follows a different person, and the only way in which they interlink as a story pretty much is that they all go to the same library. So yeah, the reason I was reading this alongside One for My Enemy is because I would read a chapter of this at a time. I didn't sit down and binge this book. I read a chapter at a time, so I had each story could like soak into my brain one at a time. This book was just so heartwarming and hopeful and inspiring and comforting. I think I read this book at the exact right time. So yeah, you're following what each chapter is a different person. So you've got different people at different stages in their lives and at different places within their employment. Once they've just got their first job out of uni, they're not in employment, they've just retired, things like that. And I currently am feeling a bit, I don't know, about my job currently. I'm not sure where I want to sort of go from here. So I think because a lot of this is to do with people, especially in the first story, she felt quite similar. That felt very comforting. And for the fact that you only get between 40 and 50 pages with each character, you are fully invested in the characters and their stories in such a short space of time, which is a really rare thing to get, really. The writing as well, so easy to just, like, it just drags you in straight away. It's not even a particularly dramatic book. Yeah, despite the fact that the plot's not very dramatic or gripping in itself, the writing, it was just very easy to get into, and it wasn't boring. It was written, I don't know, I just think the writing's really good for being like, a lot of people when they say the writing's good, they're like, oh, it was very like poetic, or it was very deep and insightful, and it wasn't even that I mean. I just mean it was good in that it was so easy to get into while not being boring and overly simple, but it also wasn't complicated either. It was just the perfect writing style for me, honestly. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for more from this author, which is Michiko Aoyama. And it was translated by Alison Watts, so I'll kind of keep an eye out for both people whenever I'm buying Japanese literature in the future, because I'm definitely going to be wanting to buy more after this. And I can tell, I mean, I would reread this so often. I feel like even just one chapter every once in a while, just pick it up, pick a random chapter, pick a random person, and read that. That's how much I love this book. Okay, next I read In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This is book 2 in the Love Light Farms series. So Love Light Farms is book 1, which is set at Christmas. This one's book 2, set in spring. I did buy You can't even see it because it's all the way up there. I did buy the third book, which is Mixed Signals, which is set in summer, which I'll plan to read then. But I wanted to read this while it was still spring. This one follows, you kind of get a bit of a look into these two in the first book. So it's following Beckett, who works on the farm, and Evelyn, who is the social media influencer who goes to the farm in book one. So it's following those two. I was very excited for their story and it was so good. I rated this one 4 stars. I gave it a 2.5 chili pepper rating because there wasn't a lot of spice in it, but it was good spice that was in it, but I wouldn't say there's a lot because it's just a short story. I don't know. It was like a 2.5 or 3 chili pepper. Yes, this one's obviously small town romance, it's second chance, and it's forced proximity because Evie comes into the town and there's no rooms available because there's this like festival thing happening, so she has to stay at Beckett's house. Yeah, it was so good. I really enjoyed the story. I was giggling. I love small town romances. If America weren't as problematic as it is, I feel like I would want to move to a small town in America as long as there's a Barnes and Noble nearby. I feel like that would just be my perfect life. So I don't have much to say, to be honest. I haven't written my review down yet for it. I haven't thought it through since I read it, but I did really enjoy it. Then the fourth book I read off my TBR was The Worst Best Man by Lucy Score. This book, literally, straight away from reading it, I was hooked. I was in it. I loved this book. This is my 4th Lucy Score book ever. I read the Knock 'em Out series, loved every single one of those books, and I absolutely loved this one too. I rated it 4.5 stars. And a 3.5 chili pepper rating because it was quite spicy. This book, the one thing is, the book starts off as one book and ends up being a different book. I don't know how to explain that aside from for the first 100-ish pages, they're on holiday for a destination wedding. And for the rest of it, they're just back in New York living their normal lives. I almost feel like this could have been a duet if we had like the lead up to the wedding a little bit more and the wedding in one book and left it on a cliffhanger after their night that they spent together. And then the second book would be like them back in New York. I think that would have made sense. But it was a little bit jarring, to be honest. The first part of the book, it's like not a murder mystery, but there's something weird and nefarious going on. The groom gets taken. It's like a whole thing. And then the second half of the book, I've had just the next 300 pages, it's just a regular romance set in New York. It was just really bizarre, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And finally, the last book I read of the month was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I rated this book 5 stars. I've actually annotated, well, I've tabbed it. I haven't actually like annotated it yet. But this is the most I've annotated a book in one go ever. I've never actually annotated this much in my life. I, from the get-go, love this book. I read nearly all of it in one day. And the only reason I didn't finish it is because I was like, I really do need to go to bed. I had like 90 pages left, that's it, for like the second day, and I finished it as soon as I woke up. I could not put this book down. I wish I'd read it earlier in the day so I could have just finished it in one day, honestly, and not had to put it down. There's something about Emily Henry books. I just want a man written by Emily Henry, like an MMC written by Emily Henry, because she also writes dickish men, like Terrible Dads or Peter. But Miles, I just want a Miles or a Gus, to be honest, from Beach Read. The banter, there was so many funny moments. No one writes banter like Emily Henry. It was so good. And yeah, you probably all know what this story's about. It's about two people who get their partners end up with each other, so they have to move in with each other because he needs help with rent, she needs somewhere to live, and it's just so organic how things are. They start off not really talking much. They're both heartbroken. You don't get the best first impression of Miles, but because I knew that and I was prepared, I wasn't bothered. But the Miles you meet in the first like few chapters is not the Miles that you leave with. Miles is he is golden retriever energy. The whole town loves him. He's just like this easygoing, really friendly, really kind guy, and I just love him. And also she's a librarian. Like, I want to be here without the fiancé leaving her. Obviously that doesn't sound very fun. but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, the writing, I just, not for a second was I bored. I like, literally from the first page, I was like, right, this is me, I'm in. The writing is so, you know how there's like snacks that you describe as being Moorish? I don't know where I'm going with this, but you're gonna have to like go with me. And like, you keep wanting to go back for more, and like, you don't want to put the snack down until you finished it. That is basically this. The writing is Moorish. Yeah, I know a lot of people weren't too bothered with Miles or whatever, but I loved him. And that is literally every single book I've read by Emily Henry. And I've read her regular backlog. I haven't read anything she's published like before People We Meet on Vacation, I don't think. Basically, all the ones that are known: Happy Place, Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation, and Book Lovers. I've read those. All of them have been 5 stars so far. And this one is just adding to the pile. So basically, Emily Henry is my favourite author ever, because she has to be, just by rating alone. Let's go on to stats. So, total pages read is exactly 4,000. I calculated this 3 times and came up with 4 times, came up with 3 different numbers every time I added all the pages together. And 4,000 is the only one that came up twice, so I'm not even 100% sure if that number's right. But, despite the fact it's the most books I have read in a month so far this year, it's not the most pages read so far this year. That still is with January, I think. Yeah, so January is still the most number of pages I've read in a month this year so far, being 4,121. But 4,000 is not bad. 12 books. It's because I did have quite a few shorter ones in there. So I rated 3 books 3 stars or above, 7 books 4, and 2 5 stars. I'm very happy to have 2 5-star reads this month, because I feel like I have not had many 5-star reads this year so far. 3 books were fantasy, 5 were romance, 3 were dark romance, that's 3, and 1 literary fiction. I read 8 in paperback form, 3 in hardback form, and 1 as an audiobook. So those are the stats. So, there was 2 books of last month's TBR that I did not get to, and that is The Song of Achilles and Maybe For You. I just wasn't in the mood. I needed something upbeat, I needed something fun. I did not have the mental energy for sad books. So these will be going back on here. I don't think either of these were picked as a specific book, so they should still be in the TBR jar. If you want to see my TBR for June, my TBR video should already be up, so it will be on my channel. It might be on the end cards of this video, I don't know. But yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. Let me know if you've had any 5-star reads this month. I would love to know what. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!